Hi there, it's Nicole Spohr here today, and I'm so excited to be sharing a card created with the Simon Says Stamp limited edition Happy Haunting Halloween 2020 kit. I'm going to be using several products from the kit for this slimline masked Halloween card share today. So I really wanted to create like this all over background that had lots of text. So it's not necessarily masking for inking over the background, although you very well could, but this time we're actually going to be doing some stamping and stenciling around that. I'm going to use the Slimline MARQUEE largest die from the Stamp Timber release, and I've die cut that from some smooth white cardstock. And then I'm going to just kind of take my stamps from the Happy Haunting 6x8 stamp set that is included in the kit and lay out my stamps. I need to have an idea kind of where I want them to go and where I'm going to leave room for my actual sentiment. I am using so much text on this card that I want a designated spot for where you can actually kind of read it. The rest of it, I kind of want it to be more of a background element instead of the actual sentiment. Once I have my stamps laid out, that also gives me a really good idea of what needs to be stamped first, masked, and then what needs to be kind of back behind it. So anything in the foreground needs to be stamped first. In this case, we have the bat that I want to be in front of the moon, the cats with pumpkins that are going to be in front, and then that individual pumpkin image is going to be kind of back behind. And then the ghosts, I want those buddied up close to each other, so I want to only stamp one of them first. I'm using a Copic marker friendly ink to stamp my images, and I'm also using the Misty so that I can make sure and stamp them more than once if needed if I don't get a good outline. Off camera, I did go ahead and cut out the masks and put that first layer of masks down. Then I stamped the second layer of images, the moon, the other ghost, and the other pumpkin. I used second generation stamping on the masking paper, and here you can see I am trimming those out and creating masks for these as well. It actually went really quick. At this point, if you want to ink over the background, you could totally do that and even add text on top of that. I decided to go a little simpler and keep the background mostly white, but the masks are going to help protect my images. I probably wouldn't have had to do quite as elaborate of masks as I did. You could do just partial if you wanted to. I originally thought I might ink over this, so I went ahead and did the whole thing. Now I'm going to lay out the largest images from the Happy Haunting stamp set. So that's going to be our Spooky Salutations, Halloween Greetings, and No Tricks, All Treats. Those are going to be the biggest ones, and I wanted to find the best areas where those are going to fit first. And I went ahead and stamped those with the Simon Says Stamp Slate Gray ink. I purposely picked a lighter color of ink because I want this to be more in the background of the card and not the actual sentiment. I did go ahead and use some Post-its. I wanted to make sure it was going to stamp correctly first before I committed to my card. And it does stamp a little darker than it actually ends up being. These are dye inks, and so they are going to mute a little bit as that ink is absorbed into the paper. And it's a really beautiful, nice light gray, kind of a medium gray. It's not super, super light. It's not really dark. I really like this. It's the smoke color. Then after I have my gray larger sentiments, we're going to go back to our stamp set and pull a bunch of smaller phrases. That's going to be the little type that reads, "Hey pumpkin, you're my favorite boo. Let's go batty this Halloween. You creep me out in a good way. And happy Halloween." I really used a lot of the sentiments from this set, so we're going to go back in now, and I'm so sorry my head's in the way. I needed to get those lined up and try to avoid not completely avoid the masks, but I want them to still be kind of readable, but be in the background. And so I was trying to get up over my project to line those up. I'm going to find the spots I can add these. So we're going to have some under Spooky Salutations. We're actually going to put You Creep Me Out in a Good Way up there. I think that's so funny, by the way. I think it's so super cute. Under Halloween Greetings, Let's Go Batty This Halloween. And then kind of not really next to a large sentiment, but over to the left of the larger ghost, we're going to have Hey Pumpkin, You're My Favorite Boo. And under No Tricks, All Treats, we're going to pop Happy Halloween. Once I have that, we're going to ink all of these with Simon Says Stamp Orange Slush ink. Again, it looks so blotchy when you first stamp it because it is a dye ink. As it is absorbed into the cardstock and as it dries, which is very, very quickly, it is going to even out and it's so much lighter. I really love the color of that ink. This is where having a swatch book of your inks comes in handy because then you know what it looks like when it's dry. And I was easily able to reference my inks, see which ones I wanted to pull from my stash to use for my card. To make this easy and quick, I'm actually just going to use an acrylic block and I'm going to take the 3 small solid star images from Happy Haunting and we're going to have some nice yellow stars all over the background. This is Simon Says Stamp Sunshine ink. I love these little stars. It's starting to come together now, I think. You can kind of see how that background looks. I have to say, this might be one of my favorite cards. Just the style of it, it's a little different than a scene card because it's not necessarily a scene, although it could be, but just a little bit different than some of the other things I've been making. And I found it a really fun, just kind of different card to make. Really, really love this. After we have all of our little yellow stars, and I stamped a bunch of those all over, I actually left my sentiments in my other Misty just in case because I had them all lined up. And I have another Misty, and so I went ahead and grabbed that. And we're going to stamp the spider web and the spider up at the top of this panel with the intensified black Hero Arts ink. That way I can color in the spider and don't have to worry about the web, or not this web, the outline bleeding at all. So cute little spider, if spiders can be cute. The images in this stamp set are definitely cute and not scary. Now that we have that, we are ready to start coloring. There is going to be one additional layer for that background, but I'm going to save it till the end because I'll be able to carefully kind of go around my coloring with a stencil. We're actually going to stencil with the stencil from the kit, but because I want to put a layer of Glitz Glitter Gel from Gina K over the top of the stenciling, I really wanted to save that for last because it's going to need a little dry time. I'm ready to color in my images. We are going to be using Copic markers today. I'm going to start at the top and work my way down, starting with the moon. This is YR 30, 31, and 23. I love this little moon and the bat. I think it's so fun. And as the coloring and as we add all of the color to these images, you're really going to see the card kind of come to life. Something I want to mention, up until this point, I've used pretty standard Halloween colors, but I was very, very much inspired by the kit. There is some teal cardstock included in the kit, and when I get to the point where I am looking for what color I want to stencil, what color I want to layer behind this marquee die cuts so that it has a nice contrast, my initial feeling was to go for an orange, and you're going to see what a huge difference a color choice makes because I did lay the orange back behind it, and while that would have been fine, the teal makes such a huge impact and doesn't take anything away from this Halloween card. I really, really love the color choice, and I hope you guys like it too. For the bat, I did pull in a little blue violet color just there on the bottom of the bat wings while I was talking. I forgot to mention that. Really, really light gray, warm gray markers for the ghosts just around the edges to give them a little hint of color to make them different than the background. And then we're going to have a couple of orange pumpkins and then a more orange or more yellow pumpkin, pardon me, in the center. And then color in those cats. I think how this was stamped and masked, it looks like this image down here at the bottom especially was one single image that just had 3 pumpkins instead of 2. I really like how that turned out. And of course there's a nice little spot down there at the bottom for our sentiment strips that we'll be adding at the end. I wanted to leave in a lot of texture for the pumpkins, so I'm using a lot of feathering. I did go over them more than once. It was really important to me to get that detail in there. With so much white space in the background, I feel like it's such a good opportunity to make those images really shine. And so I tried to really pay attention to color choices. A lot of the same colors, just not going as deep and dark with the yellow reds that I use for the yellow pumpkin. The darkest we're going to go here is YR23, and then we're using YR30 and 31 for the rest. Now our cute little kitties, and I love that one that's peeking around the small pumpkin there on the left, are going to be colored with some cool grays. I'm using a combination of C4, 5, 7, and 9 for the nose. There's really not 9 anywhere else but for the little nose. So we're going to definitely start light and work our way up to add in those colors and the shading. And I went ahead and just kind of did both of them here, and then we'll do the little witch hat on the kitty sitting on the pumpkin last. Just tiny little bits of color. These images are fairly small, so not a ton of shading is needed, but I did try to build enough color that they had lots of interest. The little bow tie on the cat, I did do in some oranges to tie back into the rest of the card. So that's YR24 and 27, and then BV 31 and 34 for the witch hat, with YR31 around the buckle, and then some dark grays for the band around the hat. Okay, our coloring is all done now, and we are ready to start. I did ground this image, I forgot to mention, with a little warm gray 00 and warm gray 2. So we are ready for our final layer over the background. Let's move our markers out of the way. Let's add some nice black jelly pin detail to the eyes, a little white pin detail here and there for some highlights. I didn't add too terrible much, just kind of a few little places to add a little bit of interest. And then we're going to take the stencil included in the Happy Haunting limited edition kit, and we're going to stencil over the top. I did poke out all those little marquee holes that maybe didn't come out with my Spellbinders Tool-in-One as well. They pop out pretty easy. They're just so little they kind of stick. So this is the Random Dots and Stars stencil. One side kind of has stars, one has dots. I am going to use the stars, and I'm inking with Simon Says Stamp High Dive ink and an ink blending brush. I know that the teal color sounds crazy for Halloween, but I am so thrilled with how this turned out. It definitely ties back to our teal cardstock. This was how I decided on this, was because I laid the orange cardstock back behind it and the teal cardstock, and I really liked the teal better. I'm just going to stencil very carefully and very consciously. I want to make sure that I'm not stenciling over the ghosts or over top a pumpkin or something like that. Adding in all these great little teal stars very, very carefully. Then I want to make sure that I completely clean my stencil off. Want to get rid of all of that blue ink that I can. And then we've got some sentiment strips. We have our teal cardstock. And I'm going to line that stencil back up and take the Gina K Glitz Glitter Gel and a palette knife and very, very carefully add this iridescent sparkle to my stars. Now, in this case, I did go ahead and add a few extra stars in places that I actually didn't ink with the high dive ink, and that's because over the moon and things, I like the white glittery star, even though I didn't necessarily want a teal star there. There's going to be a few places down near the bottom where it's going to be hard to add the stenciling until the first layer dries. And the great thing about this product is it dries really, really fast. Probably about 10 minutes, and I went ahead and went back and stenciled the remaining little stars down here at the bottom. So definitely don't worry about that if you're trying to piece together a slimline card like I am doing with a 6x6 stencil. So you'll notice there's just a few down here at the bottom that are still going to need a little bit of glitter, and we can come back and do that after this first layer is dried. Look how awesome those aqua stars or teal stars look on this Halloween background. I am absolutely thrilled with how this looks. Do make sure when you're using the Glitz Glitter Gel or any kind of paste, you're cleaning it immediately. So even though I'm going to use this again, I went and cleaned my stencil and let that dry, and my palette knife, and covered the Glitz Glitter Gel, and I'll have to reuse it and rewash it the next time I use it, because otherwise that product is just going to be really, really difficult to get off. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and die cut our background rectangle and stamp our greeting. So from Happy Haunting, I am going to stamp Happy Halloween. It's a little banner design. We're going to stamp it on a scrap of the cardstock from the kit, the teal cardstock, with clear embossing ink, and heat emboss with white embossing powder. Then I die cut it with a sentiment label die, just to die cut it down, and I'm going to take scissors and do the little notched banner ends. And I love how the white looks on the teal, and it ties back in to our card background perfectly. Also included in the Happy Haunting kit is a sheet of sentiment strips. I love sentiment strips. They are so super quick and easy, and the Halloween ones are very fun. I'm just picked one from this to use with my Happy Halloween greeting. So we're going to have a frightfully good time and then Happy Halloween. So we're going to grab our paper trimmer and trim one of those down. I'll show you how easy it is to use those. I reach for these time and time again. Simon has lots of sentiment strips in all different occasions and holidays. So they really makes adding sentiments to your cards very quick and easy. No stamping, no embossing, nothing like that. You can, if you want a quick option for a greeting, they are fantastic. I'm putting foam adhesive back behind both of these strips, and then we're going to pop them up underneath the pumpkins and kitty images along the bottom of the card. Gives a nice little bit of dimension, and it's tying it all together. Let's put some adhesive on this panel and pop our little marquee rectangle in place over this, and then add the whole thing to a 3.5 by 8.5 inch slimline card base. Very, very cute. And now that we have that, we can revisit our stencil and our glitter glitz gel and finish those last few stars that I still needed to fill in. Then I will simply let this dry, and our card featuring components from the Simon Says Stamp limited edition exclusive Halloween kit called Happy Haunting for 2020 is all finished. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this masked slimline Halloween card using Simon Says Stamp products. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Simon Says Stamp products that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to never miss a new card making video. Thank you guys so much for being here today, and we'll catch you next time.